Have you thought about reinventing your life? In 2020, many people are going through a lot of stress, financial struggles, and pain. And even if you're doing just fine, but you're not absolutely in love with your life, there's still room for change, right? That's why I asked one of the most sought after coaches in this field, Adam Markel. He's a best-selling author of Pivot, the Art and Science of Reinventing Your Career and Life. He's going to share his secrets to being able to completely reinvent his life after hitting a midlife crisis. And he's going to show you how you can do it too, no matter how deep in the rock bottom you are right now. Most importantly, he's going to show you how you can become resilient. Make sure that you stay until the very end of this video because this interview just gets better. My name is Kiana Danial. I'm a 3-time author and the founder of the Invest Diva movement. If you'd like to get my updates, you know what to do. Subscribe to our channel, and I'd also totally appreciate it if you could like this video and share it with anyone in your life who needs to change and reinvent their life. Now let's go and say hi to Adam Markel and see how you can use his principles to become happier. I'm super excited to have you today. The things that you talk about are obviously always important because people are going through things in life all the time. But now specifically, a lot of people are going through hard times at the same time. So being resilient and understanding how to pivot and how to change for the best so that you can take what you're struggling with right now and change it into something that can flourish you is more important than ever. So Adam, thank you so much for taking the time. And I did notice the beard, which I think is the cause of the coronavirus over here. But can you please take it from here and tell us a little bit about your story, how you started your journey becoming the CEO of Love Media, and just take it from there.
Beautiful. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on the show. I'm thrilled to be here. I guess my starting point is with pain. It's kind of an interesting place to begin, but I think really relevant right now that people are in a great deal of pain. And I was in pain some years ago because I was doing work that was sort of torturing my soul. Really, really dramatic. I was a lawyer, and no offense to lawyers out there. I don't think being a lawyer means that you're going to live with a tortured soul. But for me, it just wasn't a good fit. I mean, when something doesn't fit, if our shoes don't fit, then our feet hurt. If our clothing doesn't fit, then we don't feel comfortable. We don't feel confident. I was a really successful attorney for about 18 years. So I wasn't dabbling in it. I did it for a really long time in New York and in New Jersey. And probably midway through my career, that 18-year period, I knew that something was really wrong. And the way that I knew something was wrong was I was waking up in the morning and starting the day feeling anxious. I had this anxiety, which I'd never had before in my life. And I was having some trouble getting to sleep at night. So I was taking Ambien and sometimes even waking up in the middle of the night. And there were clues, there were signs, symptoms that something was just off. And I ignored those signs for a really long time because I had responsibilities. I am married to my college sweetheart to this day, the most magnificent woman, and we're married 30 years. And we have 4 healthy kids. Most important thing in the world, if you're a parent, of course, is that your kids are healthy and they're doing well. And our kids are doing well and they're healthy. And at the time, I had all those responsibilities for houses, cars, 4 kids. We had 2 big dogs. We had gerbils and goldfish, and it's just a lot of living, a lot of life inside of our house. And at a certain point, I got a sign. We all get signs from different places. Sometimes they're big, bold signs that you can pay attention to, and sometimes they're more subtle. I had been ignoring the more subtle signs along the way. Some of those signs were that I was really easy to anger, and I didn't think too much about that because I'd always kind of had a bit of a temper, I guess, when I was a kid. So that didn't seem odd, but I was more easily angered. I was finding myself losing my energy in the middle of the day, and I'd just have to drink more coffee. So that just would only increase my agitation as well. As I said, I used to wake up in the morning, I put my feet on the floor, and I would feel like a sense of dread about the day. Um, I would notice that my hair started to thin. I used to have a full head of hair, and now I have this awesome coiffed, bald, shiny dome. And so these were the symptoms, or the signs anyway, that I was seeing but not paying attention to. And then one Saturday morning, I ended up in the emergency room, lying on a gurney, um, feeling as though my heart was literally going to jump out of my chest, and I was sweating, and I believed in that moment that I wasn't even going to see my kids that day again, ever. And I thought I was having a heart attack. And as it turned out, the doctor was able to tell me, and it was a huge relief, that I wasn't having a heart attack at age 39 or 40 or whatever it was at the time, but that I was having an anxiety attack. And I'd been walking around with this low level and maybe not so low level of anxiety. And ultimately, it culminated in my not being able to breathe, my heart feeling really tight, my thinking, I've got to get to the emergency room before I expire. And it wasn't a heart attack, thankfully. So when I got out of the hospital that day, my wife and I walked outside, and I realized I'd been given something of a reprieve, a second chance. And of course, like so many, oh, look at the little one. Yay. Sweet. When I walked out of the hospital that day, I realized, I had to change some things. I didn't know what those things were. I just knew I needed to make a change. And I think that's the way we are in our lives, that often we resist the obvious. Sometimes we resist change because the unknown is scarier than even the mediocrity that we might be living with. And I was no different. I was just ignoring those things. And so even though I had this serious scare, this sort of near death experience for me, I went back to business as usual because I didn't know what to change. I didn't know how I could do things differently. I had as I said, a lot of weight resting on my shoulders. And then sort of 6 months later, I had come home late from work. I was a workaholic, so 70, 80 hours a week was nothing for me. And I came home thinking, of course, at the beginning of the day, well, I'd have dinner with the family tonight. I'd be able to read the kids a bedtime story and kiss and hug them before they went to sleep. Because as you know, with your little one right there, they don't stay little forever. And I knew that this was a moment in my life that I wanted to hug, I wanted to hold and be present for. And so that night I got home about 8:30, which was fairly typical for me. And I walked in the door. It was cold. It was rainy on the East Coast. And I was dripping. And I looked over and I saw my wife's face. And some of us can know, like when we see our partner's face, that there's something either right or wrong immediately. And as soon as I saw her face, I knew it. I had done it again. I had missed the kids going to bed yet again. And I walked straight up to her and I looked her in the eyes and I said, if I keep doing what I'm doing, you're going to be a widow. And that was was a serious thing to say. And thankfully, this beautiful, amazing partner that I have, she took a deep breath and she looked at me and she didn't remind me of all of my responsibilities and all the things that we were committed to doing. She just said, we'll figure it out. And instead of my having to have a midlife crisis, which is certainly where I was headed, we created and planned for a midlife calling instead. And fast forward 2.5 years later, because it took a while, and I'm not a jump ship guy. I'm a plan and proceed person. I'm really practical. I was a lawyer for a lot of years, so I sort of had that ingrained in myself, but I knew I had to change at this point. So over 2.5 years, we reinvented my career, many things, many aspects of my personal life. And from there, I wrote a book, a best-selling book that's sold all over the world called Pivot: The Art and Science of Reinventing Your Career and Life. And it's allowed me to not only run some of the largest business development and personal growth training companies in the world, including More Love Media, but it's allowed me to keynote speak to organizations, groups, from everywhere from Japan in December and Singapore the prior March, and Costa Rica, Panama, all over the United States, Canada, for many, many years to a lot of people who are also reinventing themselves or their businesses. And right now, in these times we're living in, this is a time of prolific change, pandemic change, if you will. And reinvention is both an it's a necessary skill, it's a required skill, it's a survival skill, and it's also one of the most artistic things that we're capable of as human beings. I mean, we are reinventors by DNA, because our species has evolved through adaptation over time, and we are constantly reinventing. So this really isn't that odd. I mean, it caught everybody off guard for sure, because we're so addicted to the status quo as human beings. I think it's one of those paradoxes that we are both creatures of great change, meaning our capacity to change is so baked into our DNA on the one hand, and on the other hand, we are so resistant to change and so addicted to the status quo. So that's where the work, I think, is really relevant today, and I'm so happy we get to have a conversation about it.
So when you speak, I don't even want to interrupt, because it's so captivating, your story and the pain that you went through. And I think that every person, maybe not to that extent, but they feel like they're stuck. The question that I had when I was listening to your story is that, well, you had a calling and you understood that you were like, I don't want to be a lawyer. This is not a right fit for me. And you did have the support, and you were thankfully able to do that. My question is for people who maybe even like their jobs, and now they're in a position that they don't even have a job, they can't pay for their mortgage, and maybe they don't even have the support that you were lucky enough to have. What would you recommend to these kind of people at this time?
I don't believe in accidents. And I know some people feel like things are random and there's randomness, and I have a random friend and a random this and a random that's kind of like in the language today for sure. But there's nothing random about what is happening in our world. And so if you are willing to at least even adopt temporarily the belief that this is purposeful, not that it's all good, because there's a lot of parts of this that are not good. A lot of people are suffering right now. People have died. I was on with a dear friend of mine yesterday who told me that and I hadn't spoken to him in more than a month. His mom passed away last week of coronavirus. She was 87 and was diagnosed, and within a week she was gone. I mean, it's devastating. So there's that's happening, and at the same time, to be able to also simultaneously entertain the understanding or the possibility that everything that's happening is still happening with purpose, with meaning, and to know that if you're in a position right now where you don't love your life, you don't love something about your life, what you can do is change something about your life. I don't mean change everything, because that's not the book is really great on process, on how it is that you incrementally, step by step, even step by baby step, make significant changes to career path or to personal relationships or health or something like that. So I think we tend to want to believe that if we're going to have a different outcome, that the change has to be really significant at the beginning. And what I want to say is that it doesn't have to be that way. In fact, the tiniest little change in the input always changes the output. That's the physics of it. You know, you change the direction of a straight line, even by a millimeter, by 1 degree. Over time, if you extend that line out, it changes greatly. So right now, somebody who's in a career that they don't love, this is an opportunity to make a change. This is an opportunity to look at evaluating what is it that would make your heart sing? What would give you enthusiasm? What would also provide opportunities for you financially? Because that's a real world issue right now, is how do you sort of maintain yourself financially during these times, and even how do you thrive? And I think there are great opportunities everywhere. But if we're sort of stuck in the fear of losing what we currently have, it's almost impossible for us to see the creative opportunities that are there for us as well at the same time.
This is incredibly empowering because it gives you control of your life. You are in control. You are the artist of your life. And this thing actually happened to me before as well, when I got actually fired from a job that I thought I liked, and it turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to me. It made me to start my business, and look where I am today after 8 years, and I'm interviewing you, and I'm doing things that I love that is generating me money. And at the time I thought I was a victim, and I thought that my boss just did me wrong, and I was pointing fingers. And it turned out that once I kind of understood that this happened to me maybe for a reason, it actually turned out to be that way, and it gave me a lot of power. And as you said before as well, you said it took it 2.5 years. I think that is great timeline. For me, it took me 5 years actually. So it does take time. And I do want people who are listening and watching right now to understand that this is not a quick fix, right?
Yeah.
It takes time, but at least you know that you are in control, and you're headed in a direction that is not going to kill you prematurely, and is going to give you a better life in the long run.
Yeah.
How long would you give it for? Because people, I feel like right now with the shortening attention span, people, when they don't get what they want, the reward immediately, they fall back into the old habits super fast. It's very, very hard to stick with it. And I know there are so many YouTubers, and you talk to a lot of people. How much success do you actually see? And what can people do to actually stick with it and not go back to their old habits?
Yeah, I think that you're hitting on something really important, which is that the tendency for people to go back to what's familiar, or to even if what's familiar is painful, is really, it's habitual. We will move toward the things that are familiar to us, even when those things are, again, just not as good as we know they can be. So the fact is, right now is an incredible opportunity, because the old way of doing things is probably not ever going to, well, I shouldn't say it that way, because some things will return to what were familiar before. Some of the old normal will return, but this new normal, or this new abnormal, as I've been referring to it lately, I think is going to change and shift the paradigm across so many different areas of our lives, including especially in our business lives. And so knowing that we're not going to go back to the way things were is an opportunity right now for people to simply go with the flow, meaning to allow themselves to not resist the changes that are happening, and instead look at where it is that you can actually leverage those things. Where is it that you can make utilization, create alchemy out of alchemy is the turning of lead into gold. Where is it possible that you can utilize all this change right now? Meaning put up a sail. If the wind is blowing greatly, the winds of change are blowing, hoist the sail right now. So to me, what does that look like? It looks like, where can you serve online, as an example? Where is it possible for you to be able to serve people in a situation like this? So for example, and I lead trainings, I lead virtual trainings for people that want to become public speakers, or want to get on a TEDx stage, or want to become coaches sometimes. And I teach them how to use a virtual training platform to do that. So I thought to myself, well, what's the most extreme example of somebody that might be listening to this and thinking to themselves, listen, easy for you to say, you're a trained speaker, this is what
You're
you've
a
been doing.
lawyer, like you know how to talk.
All of that stuff, right? So I thought, okay, so somebody's just been recently let go. They've been furloughed, or now they're unemployed. They're listening to this at the moment. If I were in your shoes, what I would do is I would get on Zoom. I would create a virtual training for something where I'm helping other people navigate the I just got fired arena. Like, I just got let go. I just got furloughed. I'm shitting my pants. I don't know what's going to happen in my future. What do I do about it, kind of thing. And what's beautiful, and you said this earlier, you said everything happens for a reason. I like to push back on that statement, because my internal BS meter kind of goes off and says, well, tell me how this could possibly be for a reason, you know? And I think it's because that statement is incomplete. And the statement to me is not so much everything happens for a reason, but everything happens for a reason, comma, and that reason is there to serve. And that really helps me to understand it better, that whatever is happening, even if I can't understand it, even if it's unfair, even if it makes me angry, even if it seems like it's just the worst, most awful thing that's ever gone on, that if I realize that it's happening in order to serve, that there's some way that I'll be able to serve, or that we as a community will be able to serve the world better because of this thing, then I don't have to figure out all the little details. My brain, it's like above my pay grade. It's for a higher source to understand how all this is happening for our greater good. I don't need to. All I need to know is that that's the case, that I have faith that that's the case.
You
So
hit the nail
right
like
now,
in the exact right spot. This is just so,
yeah.
please go ahead. I was like, oh,
All right, cool.
yeah.
Yeah. So somebody who's gotten unemployed, what I would do is I would say, I'm going to find an employment, somebody who's an employment, what do they call those folks? A career counselor, or someone that helps people, even a headhunter, someone who's an executive search firm expert. And I'd say, I want to interview you. I want to have you come on Zoom. This is such a great platform. People can join. It doesn't cost a lot of money. And I want to interview you, and I want you to use me as a case study. To think about this. I just got laid off. I want to get the best expert I can, who's also looking to, grow their brand, maybe grow their business, wants to get more, people to know what they do. Say, so you're going to be my guest on the show. I've never interviewed anybody before. I just want us to have a conversation. And I want you to turn me into your little experiment. Like, put me in the petri dish, and make me your experiment for everybody else who's going to be watching. And that way, everybody else who's watching can learn just as I'm going to learn. What do I do now? Should I be getting my resume together? Are resumes even a thing that anybody looks at anymore? How do you send them out? What's the next step? Like, am I supposed to sit quietly with my thoughts and figure out what I want to do? Am I supposed to dive into my why? Am I supposed to get to work? I mean, what am I supposed to do right now with this? And so instead of trying to figure out the answers, have somebody interview you and have them use you as an example, because everybody's great at giving everybody else advice. When it comes to giving ourselves advice or taking our own advice, the advice we give to other people, we're not so good at it, right? It's
100%. I agree with you.
Yeah. So that's just an example of what you could do right now, even in the worst case scenario that you just lost your job, or you had to shut your business even because you can't afford to pay the rent at the moment, or whatever the case might be. It's like, use yourself as an example to serve other people, because the pain that you're going through, whatever that pain is, I guarantee you this, you are not alone. There are a lot of people just like you. And so, yeah, I mean, right now you may be a bit confused, but to me, when I'm confused, the most important thing that I've learned over time is to simply serve other people in those moments.
That is so true on so many levels. And I actually learned that the hard way as well. And I was mentioning that it took me 5 years to actually get the business going on. The reason was that first I was thinking about me. How can I make money? How can I do this? How can I get people to pay me? And once I actually switched that and thought about how can I serve? Who can actually benefit from my method and the way that I teach things? How can I do things differently that people can benefit from it? That is when my business started to skyrocket, and people just started coming to me even without me trying, was because my focus was on their success. And this is so powerful, and it's so humbling at the same time, because it is very hard that when you are going through pain to sometimes do the sympathy thing, like, oh, maybe other people are going through pain as well. But it's just so important and serves everybody better. And it's not cliche. I absolutely can guarantee you that once I really started, now I wake up in the mornings I'm excited to see the success of my students. When I see my students' success, I'm like the most excited. That is the most rewarding feeling. And that transfers and translates to them. And it makes my business grow. It helps them and it helps everybody. So I really want you guys to not take Adam's words just as a word. Like, I'm the walking proof that what he's saying is super true. When you become obsessed with people that you want to serve, that is when you see success for yourself as well. And I have a question for you, Adam, here. When you were a lawyer, was the reason you were under a lot of anxiety was because you didn't care?
Repeat that question for me.
When you were a lawyer, the reason why you had a lot of anxiety, was it because you didn't care about your clients?
Oh, that's a good question. You know
go
what? Yeah, I have always had a deeply caring heart in any work I've done. So as a lawyer, I cared so much for my clients. I wanted to do anything I could for them. But I'm going to be very transparent and say that the conflict for me was the way that I was running my business had me conflicted between earning money and serving those clients the way I would serve if money were not in the mix. And I know we won't have time to dive into that one, but I imagine you could anticipate that there are times in a profession like the law where you're going to be making certain decisions that are well, let me put it this way. I was dealing with people often at their worst because I was a litigation attorney. And so many times I was seeing them at their worst. And we were involved in court battles. And even though I knew that that sometimes there was a higher principle that was involved in the case, something that somebody, let's say, had been sued or they were suing someone else, that oftentimes there was a moment when I had to tell them this kind of an ugly truth or this very difficult truth that their case was either weak or there was a weakness in their case or that there was a chance that they could still lose their case, even if because I used to handle discrimination suits, employment cases and things like that as well. And we had to have the conversation around settling. And that conversation around settling was usually really brutal because I didn't have a crystal ball. I couldn't guarantee the result. I couldn't guarantee that they would absolutely win. And so we would have these conversations around the odds of success and the risk reward in going forward. And it was even in this moment, I can feel it now. It would tug on my heart because there was a part of me that if the money wasn't involved, we just go to the end no matter what. Like, just have your day in court no matter what. But most cases settle. And I remember at the top of the Supreme Court building where I would work a lot of the time, at the Supreme Court in New York, in Manhattan, it said something like, the true administration of justice is the firmest pillar of good government. I believe that's the quote that sits at the top of the New York State Supreme Court. The true administration of justice is the firmest pillar of good government. And it's that administration piece that's really challenging. Meaning, justice is not necessarily a black and white thing. And so this is a really subtle conversation because I know it's so important that there are advocates for other people in the world. And it's a shame to me that people can't resolve their differences without having to revert to the administration of justice, because administration is very costly of time and of money. And most cases never go to court because it's so costly, and because the BS that's all involved in that whole process is so excruciating that it ultimately people succumb to the pressure and really have to just make things go away. So in any event, I'm sorry we digress so far in that, but I'm glad you asked me the question, because it was a conflict between the money aspect of the profession for me and the way I was running my business, and my really deeply ingrained programming to come to the aid of people who are in trouble. So now what I do, which is very different, is that I'm able to help people without that layer of administration, let's say. Exactly. And I never feel like I have that same conflict. I can just serve and meet people where they are and help them in their lives, whether it's reinventing some part of their life or helping them with the work that we currently do. And I don't feel conflicted anymore.
I'm so glad I asked that question, because first when it came out of my mouth, I was like, am I insulting him? But then, so you basically are doing the same exact thing, because I watched this Netflix show Divorce, and like what you were saying, like, oh my God, I remember that. Like they had to go, and even if I say I don't want a lawyer, then the opposite person has a lawyer. And if you want to have a business as a lawyer, you have to fight for it. So it's a vicious cycle. Like no matter how good you are, no matter how good all the parties are, you just end up going and costing more money and time, and then you just end up settling. You could have avoided that. And a lot of people go through that. And now you're doing that with your book and your trainings, and you're not costing people as much as you were, and you're serving them more. So you guys, I really hope that you can go and grab Adam's book, Pivot. I believe because of the coronavirus lockdown, my copy is not yet here, and I'm so bummed because I cannot wait to read it. Can you show us that that's the one? They can grab it on Amazon. Perhaps Amazon will ship it faster. So I'm super excited to actually read it, because constantly, everybody, myself, I'm going through pivoting. Even when you reach a level of success, then you want to figure out where you want to go to next. So I'm super excited for that. Thank you so much, Adam, for being on the show. It was just so empowering. It brought tears to my eyes like multiple times. And I just can't thank you enough.
I'm thrilled to have been here. And may I say one last thing? Is that okay?
100%.
Yeah, beautiful. So I'm wearing a shirt that says, I am resilient. And there's a chapter in the book Pivot that's all about resilience. And now more than ever, the resilience component is so important for people. So I'll just really say quickly that folks that are looking to figure out, let's say, where it is that they could up level their resilience, because resilience isn't just about endurance. I know a lot of people right now are thinking they have to work so much harder, and everybody I speak to, I don't know if this has been your experience as well, but everybody I speak to is just so busy. You know, I don't know what they're so busy with, but you know, they were busy, more busy now than they were before coronavirus. So I think that's a part of what is perpetuating right now, is everybody's sort of thinking they have to work so much harder just to keep up, or to ensure that they're going to have a seat when the music stops, kind of thing, right? Musical chairs. And that is going to be, there'll be a ripple effect of that. And many people I've already spoken to are exhausted from it as well. And so creating resilience isn't about creating more exhaustion. I just want your folks to hear this, is that it's not about how do I endure through this situation that we're all going through. It's about how do I create systems and processes for myself, for my life, to help me to thrive right now. And so resilience isn't about endurance, it's about recovery. It's about using this time to create recovery rituals for yourself. So creating resilience is mental, it's emotional, it's physical, and it's spiritual. So for your listeners, your viewers who would love to figure out where they are in terms of their own personal resilience, the habits they have that either create resilience, a more resilient way of living, and a more resilient business even, they can go to your.resilienceculture.com. So your.resilienceculture.com. And in 3 minutes, they can take a free, by the way, there's nothing for sale. I'm not promoting or pitching anything. They can take this free assessment, and in about 3 to 4 minutes, answering 16 very quick questions, they're going to find out what their own resilience score is in those 4 areas, the holistic picture of mental, emotional, spiritual, physical resilience. And then they're going to get a 30-page guide to help them to up-level their habits. Because you brought that up earlier and we never got to dive, more deeply into that. But how it is that you actually create new habits and how you sustain those habits. Because as you said, lots of people start things and then they fall off the wagon and they stop. So this kickstart guide for their resilience is going to really help them. And it all starts with that simple assessment tool that they can get. So hopefully that helps. Of course, I'd love for people to, check out the book, and we'll make sure that you get a copy really soon as well. I don't know what's happened with mail delivery, but maybe we'll just go directly.
They're pushing the important things apparently faster, and important includes toilet paper and not your book apparently. So that's what's happening. I'll make sure to add a link to your resilience website as well, so that people can go and just click on that. Thank you for adding this piece. That was super important. And yes, it did go back to the question that I asked before. And do you have any other nuggets of wisdom to just leave our audience with?
The last thing is your waking ritual. So if I was going to give everybody one new ritual that they could start to create, and by the way, I say ritual because we have to ritualize things to habitualize them. And that means we put our conscious focus on doing something different. So this is a real simple one. I wake up every day in the same way. Since I used to put my feet on the floor and feel that dread at the start of the day, now when I wake up in the morning, I put my feet on the floor, I take 10 seconds. This was the subject of my TED Talk about 1.5 years ago. But I just take 10 seconds when my feet hit the floor to feel something that I'm grateful for. And for folks that go, well, how can I feel grateful? Or I don't want to feel grateful now. It's like so many bad things are happening. It's like, I just think, when I put my feet on the floor, even to this day, I think right now, as I'm taking this breath, the breath I'm taking right now, there are people taking their last breath in this moment. That's just the reality of it. So I can be grateful, regardless of whether my day is going to be easy or difficult, or what's going on even in the world. I can feel grateful right now for this breath and for the fact that I am alive. And so I feel that gratitude for a moment, and then I say 4 words, very simple, like words that have a big meaning, but these 4 simple words every day when I start my day. And that is, I love my life. I love my life. And those 4 words have changed so much for me. They are like a buoy that I get to hold on to when fear, doubt, or worry start to enter into my days. And so I invite your folks, when they wake up tomorrow, to just put their feet on the floor, realize what a blessing that is. Take 10 seconds to feel it, and then say something out loud. Could be they say, I love my life, or it could be, I am brave today. I am brave today. I feel good to be alive today. Whatever it is you want to say, but plant those seeds at the beginning of the day. It's so important that we plant seeds at the very earliest part when we are starting a new day. My grandmother used to say that to me. She'd say, just start the day on the right foot. And I can't think of a better way to start the day, figuratively speaking, on the right foot, than to have the first words come out of your mouth be something that you choose to say, versus where's my coffee, or check your email, or whatever other thing that we typically do without thinking about it.
No, I totally agree. And I want to stress that, and that I'm guilty of that too. The first thing I do every morning is check my social media. It's crazy. I'm becoming addicted, and especially during lockdown, and because I'm putting more content out, I don't know, I'm trying to blame other people for it. And I've noticed that has switched my energy level throughout the day. Because before I was trying to create the ritual of writing in my gratitude app every morning. And I wasn't able to actually keep up with it. I did it for 2 months, and then I gave up. What I love about what you just said is that it's only 10 seconds. Like, I don't have to actually, so when I now, like, so the funny thing is, it was a gratitude app, and I developed the habit of taking my phone, but then I took the phone and now I check my social media. I'm not writing in my gratitude app anymore. So it's important to keep it simple, so that it's not distracting you. So I think gratitude, like these apps, the idea of it is great, but I think it's distracting. it's important to do something that is not distracting you, and just getting up, you have to do it anyway. And just saying that gratitude while you're standing up the first 10 seconds, I think that's very powerful and very simple. And anyone can do it. You don't even have to have a phone for that, which is great.
Yeah.
That
Awesome.
was awesome. Thank you so much. I definitely took a lot out of this. I will put down, as I said, the links to Adam's book and the website and everything else. You guys, comment. Let us know what you thought about this. Tell me what you are going to do tomorrow. The first thing you're going to do tomorrow to change what is causing you pain right now at life. Comment below. Share this video with anyone that you think is going to benefit from it, because I cannot think of anyone who can't benefit from pivoting and being more resilient, because anybody can and should. And of course, if you would like to get more updates from me, go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you. We have a tradition. We ask all our guests to make a silly face on a count of three. 3, 2, 1. Like